Hello and welcome to the Women's Network. I'm Elke and I'm your host. Today we have a terrific show for you. It's very exciting, very informative. So for those of you who haven't quite settled down, please go ahead and get yourself a piece of paper and a pen because you probably want to write a few things down. Our topic today is Daughters of the American Revolution. As you can tell, it's very exciting and informative, as I said. Now, I have heard of this organization for quite some time, but sort of pushed this aside until I met a few people and listened more closely and found it very, very interesting. So with that in mind, I thought I will have to have a show on the organization Daughters of the American Revolution. And here we are. I have invited 4 wonderful women who are very active and can tell us a lot about it. So without much further ado, because we have a lot to talk about, let me introduce you to my guests. With me I have Jan Gordon. Jan is the LA chapter vice regent, but let me introduce her to you and she will tell you more about it. Jan, thank you for having you. Tell the audience a little bit about your affiliation.
Well, I've been a member for the past 6 years, and I am the regent of the Los Angeles chapter. And that's like being a president in any other kind of organization, I guess.
That's what I thought.
the chief coordinator. And this is my first vice regent, Martha Kleiner.
Hi.
Martha, good to have you here. Will you tell the audience just a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I am the first vice regent and I am in charge of planning the programs. And in that network, we always have something that's educational, historical, something of interest to women. And I have been a member since about 1989.
My God.
And my mother is a member and my daughter.
So we have the 3 generations here.
Exactly.
That's incredible. I know we have a lot to talk about, so let's go over to Gay Oaks.
Yes.
Gay, good to have you here.
Thank you so much for having us.
Tell us a little bit about your affiliation with
I am a newer member, 6 years. I've been with the Daughters of the American Revolution, and my particular niche is the American History Essay Contest. I am the education chair. And tomorrow actually is our meeting in which, and it's a big one, and the gals all look forward to this one. Because all the essay contest winners, and I can tell you about that later in more detail if you're interested, read their little essays, and all the gals get a big kick out of it. Martha, of course, has organized the meeting, and that's my thing.
Well, I want to hear more about that. And we have another guest, Bruce Kennedy, who has been a member for over 40 years. Now that's a record in itself.
Well, I do think we may have a member or two who have been members 50 years, don't we?
A couple.
I think
so,
we
yes.
do. But my position on the board is as the chaplain, and not only do I help give the devotional at every meeting, but I also keep track of our volunteer hours, because all of us have to do so much volunteer work, and I keep track of all the members that way.
Well, that's a lot of work, I can tell. Okay, well, here we are. I'm so glad we are all got together and educate our audience. And why don't we start off with what does, who can become a member, or tell us a little bit more about the Daughters of the American Revolution, or National Society as it's called.
Well, Elke, the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution is open to those people, those women, who can trace their lineage back directly to a descendant from the Revolutionary War. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it would be a soldier. They could have signed an oath of allegiance. They could have given money, donated a horse, a cow, food. We also have women patriots. There were many women during the Revolutionary War who also contributed in some way, or maybe they saved a life or you know, whatever it could be proven for their service. Most of them, though, are men. And anyone who can trace their lineage back to the Revolutionary War may be a member of the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution.
Well, it sounds quite a complicated task. How do we go about, and where can we find our family history?
You first should start with yourself, and you get your birth certificate that proves who you are, and then you go on back to your parents, and you get their birth certificate, their marriage certificate, their death certificate, and you keep going back to the generations, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and so on and so forth. Then there comes to a time where there might be a little bit of a gray zone. Maybe there weren't any death certificates back in 1810. And so at that point, you're going on wills and Bible records and things like that. But it's amazing that this country was able to keep the records that they did, particularly in really kind of rugged and rough conditions. Not everybody lived in Boston or Philadelphia or Baltimore.
Right.
I mean, Pennsylvania was absolutely wild,
Right. Yeah.
Uncleared forest, and
And-
yet they
and
were
people
still
spread
keeping
out, right.
records. It was so important. That's what we brought over with us from, you know, Europe.
So where's the place? Where do we go for the records?
Well-
I mean, now we have the age of technology.
Right.
We go on the website. I
You can
guess.
go on the website. The problem with websites is sometimes the reliability as to the sources. So the best thing to do is to go to the, in our city, we have the Latter-day Saint family library, family history library, where they have many, many records. What they don't have at that library, they can order from Salt Lake City. Public Library also has a wealth of books in the downtown public library. County courthouses, all kinds of places like that. And on the web, those are the kinds of websites that will tell you how to do it. So
Wow, that's
they will guide you, but the best thing to do then is to get your proof from the source itself.
God, it sounds so interesting just to go
it's
back
fascinating.
and back and look at Martha. Tell us a little bit about this 3 generations that you know of, right offhand.
It is very fascinating. In 1975 and 76, I delivered 2 babies one each year, and my sister took it upon herself to become a member of the DAR. That was her bicentennial project. Mine was going to the future, hers was going back. And I thought it was so fascinating, and she got very involved with it. The whole family got involved, my mother, and searched back through all of the records. This was in Arkansas, and ended up being able to trace us back to a woman by the name of Mary Yancey, who had actually donated 5,000 head of beef cattle to the Continental troops. And that's our connection. We had other men, but because we are a women's organization, that was the link that we decided to go with. So it's really been a very fascinating experience. And
how far back is that?
The interesting thing is I before I came today, I pulled out my mother's application, and it's incredible, but on her list of generations, there are only 7 generations, and the 6th one down is our link to the DAR.
Oh.
I mean, she was the one, the 6th generation down is actually the one that
one that had the
donated
link.
the
Right,
beef cattle, and then
exactly.
it went on 7 down to her parents.
Right.
But it's just amazing, and to think I was too young to know, but only 3, my sister, my mother, and me. But my sister actually remembers the 4th one. So you're only talking about 2 more generations.
Right. Exactly.
To the revolution. It's just mind-boggling to think how young our country really is. And
It is.
at this time, how easy it might be for people who are interested in becoming affiliated with the DAR, that they could still track it back. And that's what my sister felt, was before any more time passed, she wanted to
Exactly.
leave this as a legacy for her daughter.
Now, when you think we just celebrated 200 years, not too
That's
long
right.
ago, but yet you're talking about 7 generations. So it's just so exciting. Now, if you had a daughter, I don't know.
I do.
So she
She is also a member, but she's not active.
would that be automatic, or she would have
No,
to?
I actually, we filled in the paperwork for her to become a member.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Well, Gay, you said you were a newer member, 6 years. I mean, 6 years sounds like a pretty long time to me, but what made you become a member? I mean,
My mother was hoping I would, and I had been living in New York for quite some time. When I moved back to Los Angeles about 7 years ago, she spoke to me about it, and I had not really considered it until then. My mother is aging, and I thought this is a time where I can do something for her, something with her, in a sense. She's involved in many ladies' groups herself, and so she has not joined. But her aunt had been. And when I realized how easy it would be for me to join, I didn't have to go through all of the proving that these gals did.
Right.
My great aunt had been DAR. So I simply had to prove my grandmother's relationship to her, my mother's relationship to my grandmother, and my relationship to my mother. So my affection for my mother and the fact compounded that it was so easy in my case. Was
okay, I
prompted
want to
me do it.
emphasize that because, like you said, if anyone is interested, it's getting easier. Evidently,
Well, it will get harder.
once you have right, exactly. Once there is a link, somehow you can.
If you have, yes,
Right.
and that's easy to find out from national, but if you have a past, a relative that has past membership, if you can prove your link to that relative, that's
Right,
all that needs to be
exactly.
done. So in some cases it can be easy, in other cases it isn't
It's
so
tough,
easy. But
right.
that's kind of the fun of it.
Right.
It's like detective
it's
work.
challenging.
Right.
Yeah, it's,
Detective work,
it is. It's a
exactly.
lot like detective work.
And I don't want to talk to you about 40 years. But what is the objective? What is the objective of Daughters of the American Revolution?
I think the bottom line is to promote patriotism and to help revive love of our country and to understand more about our history, which is rich, really, for such a country so young.
Exactly. Yeah. What is? You mentioned earlier your affiliation. Can you emphasize a little bit? I mean, can you go into it a little bit
Well,
more?
my mother was a member, and she signed up my brother, my sister, and me in the children's, the CAR.
Oh, okay.
And then when I was 18, I became a member of a regular chapter. And now I find that I can also become a double member, I guess, on my father's side. So I'm going to do that this year, have a double membership.
What would it mean to have a double? I mean, I
Well,
know,
his sister, my father's sister, became a DAR, and I have a copy of all of her papers.
Oh, okay.
What it means,
So-
Elke, is you have,
I'll have more pins.
for instance,
Catch up with Jan.
I like genealogy. So you start.
Maybe the camera can.
Sorry.
No, I don't know whether they can do it, but it's fascinating
glare.
to see.
You start with your first patriot, and then if you're interested in genealogy, you find a few more patriots, which means you have to trace your lineage back to all of these other men. Each pin has the name of a patriot, a soldier, or a someone affiliated with the revolution. And right now I have 11,
My God.
something like that, and I'm waiting on a few more. But if you've been in the country that long, you know, unless you were a loyalist, they're all over the place. There's the father-in-law, there's
Yeah.
the soldier, there's the grandfather, and they were all there at that time. It's funny. You think to yourself, I thought people only lived to the age of 40 years old. I don't quite understand this, but when you look back, most of those guys, tough as life was,
In those early days.
they lived a long time. These guys, live to be
Into their
80
70s
and
and
70,
80s.
just like today.
Yeah.
That's incredible,
Hardy.
yes.
And
What did you
life
say?
Hardy style.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, when you think about not even having sulfur drugs
know.
or antibiotics,
so life was tough, but they still lived.
they
They lived long lives.
And like Martha pointed out, a lot of these guys are Minutemen. They're in their fields, they're working, they're supporting their farm, and the war is sort of going through their neighborhood. So, you know, they drop the, that's exactly it.
That's exactly what happened.
and the wife picked
You
it
know,
up.
get in the trenches, they move on, they go back
And it
to
is
their-
important. It's important to realize that these guys were not. They weren't all Thomas Jefferson, and they weren't all George Washington. They were farmers.
Right.
They were candlestick makers. Some of them, you know, they came over here with nothing. They came over as indentured servants. That's slave. And they were slaves until they became a certain age. Sometimes it was 8 or 10 years. And they worked for a family that paid for their way over, and they were theirs until they were released. So,
It's amazing.
They were very ordinary people who did extraordinary
That's
things
right.
for freedom.
But now you are all doing extraordinary things.
yes, we are.
Let's talk about the program, because I just think it's fascinating that this group was born and that you're carrying on the tradition, the history of this country. So let's talk about how you do it.
We're over 100 years old. We started out furthering patriotism, and we continue to do it today. Our main emphasis in this chapter, I would say, would be the school children in the schools. We have scholarships available. We help people get scholarships from national organizations. We donate books, time, money. We have essay contests. Most of the things that we do with the schools. We also have programs that where we can work with new citizens, citizenship booklets,
And ROTC.
ROTC, the cadet soldiers in the high schools. So, but I would say that most of it is with the school children. That is where we have emphasized most of our, our time
Yeah.
and effort.
And also we have a program in reforestation where we collect pennies for pines, and when we have collected $68 of pennies, we can buy an acre of pines in a national forest. And generally speaking, it's right here in the Angeles Forest where
that's
we
great.
can enjoy.
Yeah.
That's with the California National Forest Association, I believe,
Yeah.
that we partnership with.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your program. I mean, your share of essays contests.
The American History Essay Contest. My job is to commandeer as many schools as possible to participate in this contest. And basically a topic is chosen by National each year. This year the topic is, as editor of the Philadelphia Gazette, interview at least 2 signers of the Declaration of Independence for your July 5th, 1776 edition.
God.
And so I try and get as many schools
Right.
as possible
Yeah.
to submit essays, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And this is a wonderful topic. Last year's topic was terrific. You know, each year there's a different topic. And there are very strict rules as to, how they should be written and so on and so forth. There's a committee of 3 that I put together that judges these essays, and winners are chosen at the chapter level, then the district level, they go on to state, and then at the national level. And we award cash prizes and certificates. At the district level, they get a little medal. We give them lots of other goodies as well. And at the national level, they can win up to $1,000, and it's a wonderful kind of thing to be able to put on any sort of entrance.
What's this-
Tell Ilke about the other contest too, the Christopher.
The other contest is the Christopher Columbus Essay Contest, and
That
that's
sounds interesting.
9th and 10th graders, and that's harder to get those kids to write because they've got so much schoolwork as it is. And
But see, what I'm thinking is what's so interesting that you start off at an early age, or you have these programs for younger people to get involved in their countries. Not don't start when you're 40 or whatever. Start early to get interested in your heritage and to preserve which I'm hearing at least.
It's so important, in my opinion, and I go into a lot of homes in just my private work. American children are so incredibly advantaged, so advantaged, regardless of what your income level is. I mean, there is just a plethora of things for kids in America and opportunities. The world is truly their oyster, and I feel it's just very, very important that there's an awareness born early.
Exactly.
That
exactly.
they can appreciate
That's
what
what I'm
they
hearing,
have.
and I think that is the issue right here.
And it is everybody's heritage. It isn't just people who've been here for 300 or 400 years. It's everybody's heritage who lives here, because we're all immigrants.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And we all came here in some way, and most people in some way have also paid their dues. So it's really important for us to act together and to study our heritage together, rather than to, divide. Because divided we don't stand.
Right.
United we stand.
Now, I understand you also have chapters outside of the United States. So more or less, you're not left out living in whatever
England.
country.
No, we have-
You can still preserve your American heritage wherever you are.
Wherever you
We
are.
do.
England.
We have about 200,000 members worldwide,
That's quite a bit.
with 125 chapters. I believe that's the figure right here in California. Now that's interesting, because Massachusetts has nowhere near that many.
It's a much smaller state, too.
It is, but what I'm saying is that you would
1/10 the
think that they
population.
would be extremely active back there. It's not
Right.
necessarily
That's right. That's
the
right.
case.
Yeah.
It's an individual thing,
Right.
really is.
You know, I was just giving a signal. We only have about 4 minutes left. So it's like I said,
It goes
you know,
fast.
it goes very fast when you have great information. And by the way, to the audience, if anyone wants to know more about the organization National Society Daughters of the American Revolution, please call the number at the end of the credits, or use the website, or email me, because like I said earlier, you probably want to know much more about this great organization. So let's come up with something.
I would say that this past year we have seen more people want to get involved with their heritage and come and learn about American heritage and join. We receive probably half a dozen calls in a month for people, and that's just our chapter. Imagine with 125 chapters what they're doing. It's of great interest right now.
One other thing that we didn't mention, Elke, is our concern about the veterans, and we do give ROTC awards and honor those ROTC high school students that have done something outstanding. And at Christmas, we take gifts over to the VA hospital for the veterans, and they really appreciate it. We also take magazines that we have finished using.
Well, it sounds like you are very active. I mean, very active
Yeah.
organization. That's what I think is so wonderful about
They really
it.
allow us to be.
You said it.
Yeah.
They allow you to be.
They allow us to be.
And I think it's great that you start approaching people at an early age, and there's several generations, and then we have you as a 40-plus member. Yeah, I think it's wonderful. I mean, it's like, you know, who can even, then your mother and your family. I mean,
My
it's-
2 daughters
and you
are
so-
coming up.
Right, and your 2 daughters, and you are so involved. I mean, I'm very privileged to have you here, I think. And,
We're privileged to be
Thank you.
here. We
Privilege for
thank
us
you.
and a pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
it's wonderful to hear, because like I said earlier, when I was in the South and I heard people talk about this organization, I was so inspired by it, and I thought this has to be, you know, discussed. Now we have a couple more minutes. What do you see for the future? I mean, any new programs, any new goals, any new ideas?
One of the newer programs that they've come up with, and to make it a little more relevant to today's woman, is they have began a committee called Women's Issues. They really want to try to help. It's great to study the past, but we also have to look to the future. And by going into women's issues, it makes things a little more current.
Exactly.
And I think that they feel that that's important for our organization to grow. So that's something new. On top of, I must say, a lot of people inquiring for membership, young people in their 20s and 30s are coming to us.
I think young people are being made aware of what America is all about, especially in times like
And they want to
these.
participate.
Right, exactly. Does anybody else have a quick, we have about 10 seconds.
Just that it's a wonderful group of women to mentor with. They are standards for me, all of them, and I think that's the role we all play with each other.
And we
Right.
affect so many areas in the city because we all do other kinds of volunteer work, which give us an opportunity then to talk about DAR and what it does.
Well, I am so glad to have had you here.
Thank you very much
Jen,
for having us.
Martha,
Thank you.
Gay, and Ruth. I want to thank you all.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Elke.
maybe we can do it again in a
Hope
year
so.
or so when we have fresh ideas. To my audience, thank you so much for joining us today. I certainly learned a lot, and I will give it more thought and see what's in my background. And for those of you who haven't, go ahead and check it out. Go to the website or call your chapter of the National Society of Daughter of the American Revolution. That's a long, long one. But in any case, thank you for joining us, and please see us again next time. Bye-bye.